Hello, everyone. Welcome
Back.
to another episode of A Journey with Jesus. We are so glad that you guys tuned in for this episode. If you're new here, my name is Carol, and
I
this
am
is my
Luis.
husband, Luis. A Journey with Jesus podcast is a pod where we share scripture, personal testimonies, and just have honest conversations about faith. Just to grow and learn, within each other
Yeah.
in this journey with Jesus. And we already have a few episodes out and they have honestly been a blessing, to our lives
Yeah.
personally. And we speak to those around us, our friends, our family, and they also tell us about how it's been a blessing in their life. And honestly, we're just so glad that, God is doing his work throughout these episodes. Honestly, nothing is for us at the end of the day. And we're just so glad that you guys tuned in. If you're new here, welcome. Like we
Welcome,
said,
guys.
and any questions, any like ways of connection that you're trying to get in a journey with Jesus as well, and you're trying to make that effort, like don't be afraid, to send a message to the Instagram page. We have
Yeah.
a separate Instagram page for the pod, or YouTube. You guys can leave comments on there or anything you guys need. But before I go on too long, this episode we are doing the 7 IMs
Yeah. Doing the
actually.
7 a.m.s.
We had a spring season planned. Today was actually supposed to be our last episode for the spring season. It's already
Summer.
summer.
Yeah.
But we want to finish the 7 IMs.
Yes.
So this is definitely something we're gonna finish. And I'll go ahead and give you guys more details on what will happen next. But we still have 3 IMs left after this one. So we're gonna go ahead and finish those. Um and but for today we have the I am the good shepherd.
Yeah. So in John chapter 10, verse 11 through 15 or 16, John writes how Jesus proclaims to be, the good shepherd. And I'm gonna read it real quick. It says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Just as my father knows me, I know the Father, so I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. It's important for us to like constantly remind ourselves since we're doing the 7 a.m. statements, and it's important for us to really like understand that the I am is a huge plays a huge part in Christ, showing his divinity. We
Mhm.
know that when Moses went up to God and God chose him, Moses asked God like, "Hey, well, in whose name do I say you sent me? Like, what do you
Mhm.
want me to say?" And he says, I am who I am. I am
Mhm.
the beginning, I am the end, I am the eternal. And so Jesus grabs this I am from, Moses' time, applies it to the Greek, and it basically is redundant, but it's important because it says, I am who I am, I am.
Mhm.
So Jesus is basically saying, all the characteristics of my father, I have as well
Mhm.
because I am in him and he is in me. And
Mhm.
so tonight we're looking at the I am a good shepherd. Last episode we talked about how he is the gate
Mhm.
to enter the gatefold for the sheep. But it's important for us to see like the way that Christ teaches us the good shepherd
Yeah.
because he says, look, there's two types of people that take care of shepherds. There's a shepherd himself, but there's also that hired hand. And this hired hand was somebody that was paid to basically go and basically watch the flock as the shepherd went and did or ran errands.
Mhm.
But Jesus makes it specific. He says, look, this hired hand will not defend the sheep.
Mhm.
This hired hand will run when danger is approaching.
Yeah.
But Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I will give my life up for my sheep. I call my sheep and they listen to me, which is emphasizing also, because remember, he's talking to the Pharisees in this certain
Mhm.
episode.
Yeah.
And what he's trying to say is, look, I'm coming from God Himself. These hired hand, these Pharisees don't care about you guys.
Mhm.
But I am the good shepherd and I care about you guys. Like, I will give up my life for you guys.
Mhm. Yeah. So I actually went into like into look into what a, biblical, like, I guess what a shepherd meant in like times like
Yeah.
that, right? And the definition I found was kind of interesting because it kind of gives like a whole like wraparound of the idea what Jesus is really trying to
Right.
grasp, right? So it says that it was a full-time guardian and a provider responsible for survival, health, and protection of a flock. Ancient Middle Eastern was known for calling each sheep by name, and the sheep will respond. So the whole like idea and job of this shepherd was to protect them with their life. Like literally in health, in survival and everything that, protection. So it's like it's cool that, not cool, but it's just interesting the way that sometimes when you read this passage,
Yeah.
you don't fully get that, you don't fully get that idea until you really look into it. And it's nice to know because it's like, dang, so this is kind of what you're telling me you're doing for me, right? And I know that you ended last episode, which was the I am
The gate.
the gate,
Hmm.
and you ended saying how the shepherd had to stand
Front
in
of the.
front of the gates,
Yeah.
to make sure nothing would harm its flock, nothing would come in that shouldn't come
Yeah.
in. And when that the picture that Jesus puts here is so beautiful and so amazing because he tells us like, I am here to watch over you. I'm here to take care of you. I know my sheep by name, like,
Yeah.
and the interesting fact about, saying like they knew their sheep by name is beautiful because you're just shown how unique you are,
Intimate.
and yeah, and how intimate it is that Jesus himself knows your name, you know.
And it's like, so when we like start to pick in, like, I know that this is, we don't have enough time because this would be like, but it's amazing because, like, sheep, like, what are the characteristics of sheep?
Mhm.
Well, if you look at the characteristics of sheep, you come to the conclusion that they're kind of dumb.
Mhm.
They
You're
they
slow.
they they're slow. They depend a lot on the shepherd.
Mhm.
They only see what's ahead of them, so they don't see around them. So they're like very vulnerable. They're vulnerable
Mhm.
animals that wolves can come and eat. And when Jesus gives his example of being the shepherd, if we go back into time, what's another example of a shepherd? David. And the Bible describes that David, yes, being a shepherd at that time when his brothers were like soldiers for Saul's army, it was in a way like disappointing for other people.
Mhm.
And David took upon the job as a shepherd and did it perfectly in the best that he
Mhm.
could. And the story tells us that he would rip lion's mouth open
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And he was young, but that
Yeah.
was his job as a shepherd, to protect the flock, to protect the sheep. And it's important for us to realize that the sheep in the times of Jesus and even in the times of David, that was their supply of food. And that was a supply for getting, extra cash, to buy other like materials or certain needs for their house.
Mhm.
So if a sheep was lost, that was literally like for them to lose a month's worth of, things that they needed, like necessities. So the shepherd had to do his job and protect the sheep. And
Mhm.
it's beautiful the way that you were saying, like, Jesus gives us this description of how, first of all, he is a good shepherd. He promises that he's going to protect us, but not only that, he promises us that he knows us and we
Mhm.
know him, and when he calls on us, we will respond to that.
Mhm.
And it's unique because you know how is it that God decides to know us intimately,
Mhm. Yeah.
and how his desire has always been to be with us intimately? Like, he's always running after
Mhm.
us. And like that verse says, where If the shepherd loses one sheep, will he not leave the 99 to
To
find the
go find
one?
him.
Like, Jesus is just demonstrating us that love and mercy that he wants to give, but at the same time offering us that comfort, that safe place to be with him, that
Mm-hmm.
he is our safe place. Like,
Yeah.
he promises us that if we are in his sheepfold, in his circle,
Mm-hmm.
nothing will come at us.
Mm-hmm.
If a wolf comes, he's going to be right there to defend us.
And the beautiful thing is that you can't, the way he emphasizes this and the way that he like puts it out there is just, I don't know, it's very special. It should be very
Yeah,
special to our hearts
100%.
because it says like how you said, it's an intimacy. It's something that we share, like me and him, like, he really cares about me. And I know sometimes, if not most of the time, we feel like, what makes me important? What makes
Exactly.
me,
Yeah.
what makes him put his eyes on me? And it's
Uh-huh.
like right here, he's kind of telling you, like, I care about you deeply. Like, I will guide you. Like, I have mercy. I want to protect you, you
Mhm.
know? And when it the part of the scripture says, like, how he um that there's still some like flock that is not in his, or yeah,
Yeah.
some sheep that are not. It's beautiful to see because obviously we know that at that time it was, how you said, for the Pharisees that were fighting these, and Jews and Gentiles and all that. It's beautiful to think that even before we thought about it, he had already thought about us. And this just makes us feel like, dang, I was included in his plan since day one,
Yeah.
and no matter how far apart I may seem to everybody, how far apart you might even feel for yourself, like, I
Yeah.
don't belong there. This is making you realize, like, dang, he even made space for me. He
Mhm.
knows you by your name, and you hear his voice, and you go because he guides you, right? And what is his voice? The word simply is his voice. You opening up is hearing his words,
Yeah.
and hearing that as his sheep, you're going to go and follow, what he has in here. Because obviously, everything that he has in here is to demonstrate us his love and to show us how to live like him more
And
and more.
and this is like a calling for us too to realize, like, look, we have to act like sheep because we tend to also want to be shepherds
Hmm.
of our own lives.
Yeah.
And when, David makes this psalm and says, when he's talking about, oh, you are my good shepherd, you lead me into green pastures, and with you I'm always safe. Like, we need to have that same dependence on God. Like,
Yeah.
we are his sheep, he is our shepherd, he's the one that goes in front of us, he leads us to those waters that satisfy our thirst, but he
Yeah.
also leads us to places where we can rest and be safe but also
Mhm.
eat. And the beautiful thing, like you were saying, that God chose us, is that we forget that we, as his sheep, as his children, before we even knew him, he knew us.
Mhm.
Paul writes in Romans about how before the foundation of the earth, he
Mhm.
knew us and he chose us.
Yeah.
And then he not only did he choose us, but he also chose us to be under the image of his son, Jesus
Mhm.
Christ. And because he wants us to be at that image of his son, he justifies us and he glorifies us and he gives us everything that we need so that we as sheep can be under his authority as our shepherd.
Mhm.
And Paul also writes in Romans 8, and he like writes and explains to us what can lead us away from God? What can, make a space, break this bridge that we have, this communion with God? What can do it? Tribulation, problems, anguish, death, angels, demons. Uh, and Paul says nothing.
Mhm.
Nothing can separate us from him. And right here in John, Jesus is saying, nothing will ever separate you from me because I am the good shepherd.
Yeah. That it, all of the things come together. Obviously, last
Episode.
episode we talked about, how he is the gate, and obviously one more thing I will not get tired of thinking over and over again and reminding myself honestly as well is that how like Jesus makes a big picture here. He says he's basically saying like I am the way to salvation. Like I you guys entered through my gate. Let me take care of you guys. Let me
Hmm.
guide you guys to this beautiful eternal life, that you're going to have after, because we know that death doesn't end there, that
Yeah.
God has given us hope and he's given us, reason to live for in this world because we know
Yeah.
that this world will end, but there's another beautiful life that's coming and it's
Eternity.
awaiting for us and it's forever. Yeah, like for
Yeah.
eternity. It's never gonna end. And I know that sometimes it's hard. Like it's hard even for us,
Yeah.
and I can tell you guys that seven, no, like 80% of our life is at church, is
Yeah.
at, or not, let me not even say like at church because obviously, some people feel like church is just up, you keep yourself busy and you're like
Yeah.
church, church, church. But no, like 80% of our life is dedicated to doing a service for Christ. To bring, and encourage people. And it's beautiful to do that. And I can imagine like not doing anything, like, like what will my life consist of? Like it's just beautiful. But obviously, some people are just starting a journey with Jesus, but this is clearly like Jesus telling us, like, come to me. Like, I want to protect you. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to I want to hug you. I want to have you here. And I know that sometimes it's very hard for us to do that. And like I said, like even us that we are
Yeah.
80%, sometimes it feels like, at least personally for me, it feels like, dang, like where are you?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. I feel like you're so far away and it's so hard. And like, you know, even today I was asking Jesus and I was like, give me clarity. Like there's a lot of things that I need clarity in my life. Like
Right.
I feel like, but also like if you're not listening to your shepherd's words, which are in here, if you don't take the time to listen to him, it's going to be very hard. And it's going to be very hard to fill up a void and emptiness.
Well, that's the thing because if you look into the shepherds and the way that they would, you know, discipline sheep, is that when the sheep would constantly leave the flock, the shepherd would break his leg and make him dependent again onto him. And God does the same thing to us, where He says, okay, you know what? You want to leave the flock. And then, it's not that He gives us the problem, but He lets us endure a problem so that after the problem, we can realize, like, oh, shoot,
Mhm,
I left
mhm,
and now He's calling me back. And sometimes and this is not like all the time, but
mhm.
sometimes we go through seasons in our lives because we decide to ignore the shepherd.
Yeah.
And God in his mercy and his beautiful love with creation decides and says, look, I'm gonna let you go through this problem that you're putting yourself into, but I'm gonna be right there waiting for you. And he calls us, we come back, and when we come back, we realize and we mature, and we're like, you know what? It is true. Being with my shepherd in the flock with everybody else is safe.
Yeah.
It's better. I'm comfortable. He has me in his hand. And the way that the Bible describes God is, he says, I am like, all I've ever wanted for my people is to gather them up and make them safe, just like how a mother hen gathers up her chicks, puts them under her wing, and covers them. God wants the same thing for us. He calls us always, always running behind us. When we run as far as we can the other direction, He runs after us and brings us back.
Yeah.
And I know that for a while there was like this picture in like the social media of this it was like a little baby lamb
Mm.
in the
Oh yeah.
mud, and then you can see like Jesus in the back running.
Mhm.
Like that's him. Like, no matter where
Mhm.
we're at, he's always gonna come for us
Yeah.
because he is that good shepherd.
Yeah.
And if David demonstrated to us what a good shepherd looks like, and he is a human that was full of errors, mistakes, and wasn't perfect, how much more the perfect Lord that we serve? How
Mhm.
much more perfect? How much more safer would will we be under his hand?
Yeah. And that point kind of brings me where you're just because everything you described right now is showing like it's kind of putting out there the love of God,
Right,
right? The
100%.
like the huge amount that love that God gives us, right? Um and when right here when we just read right now, it talks about a hired hand. It talks about how, we got to be careful with that, obviously.
100%.
The contrast to that is that people, obviously hired hands, they do these things, they take care of you, they feed you and everything because there's an interest behind
A
that.
hundred
They're
percent
going to get something out of it. And what is God is telling us here, like, I'm doing it for what you explained, for love.
for love.
I'm doing it because I love you. I'm not doing it because I want something in return, right? Except our hearts.
Yeah, exactly.
But nothing a hired hand would get, right? Which what the time was money,
Yeah.
right? People would get paid for that. And obviously like they have an interest. And what you described right now is literally like Jesus showing us that he does this because he
Love.
cares so much about you, because he loves you so much.
And it's also like a warning for us because sometimes we can fall into like this where we look up to our leaders like at church as like, oh my god, like he knows the best for me, and
Yeah.
he's gonna do all these things for me. And Jesus tells us right here, look, don't put your eyes
Mhm.
on people that for a moment can be with you, but when danger comes, when you need them the
Mhm.
most, they're not there.
Mhm.
But I am always there. Set your eyes on me, for I
Mhm.
will always be with you. When everybody leaves you, guess who's going to be there?
Mhm.
God Himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually like right now that you're mentioning that, I wrote down a Bible verse here and it's in Ezekiel 34 15.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
can, yeah. Yeah, you can try from 11.
Okay,
Let's
for
do that.
this is what the sovereign Lord says: I myself will search and find my sheep. I will be like a shepherd looking for his scattered flock. I will find my sheep and rescue them from the places where they were scattered on that dark and cloudy day. I will bring them back home to their own land of Israel from among the peoples and nations. I will feed them on the mountains of Israel and by the rivers and all the places where people live. Yes, I will give them good pasture land on the high hills of Israel. There they will lie down in pleasant places and feed in the lush pastures of the hills. I myself will tend my sheep and give them a place to lie down in peace, says the sovereign Lord. I will search for my lost ones who strayed away, and I will bring them safely home again. I will bandage the injured and strengthen the weak, but I will destroy those who are fat and powerful. I will feed them, yes, feed them justice.
Yeah, so right here, uh, obviously towards the end we get back once again to the people's having mixed obviously opinions about Jesus saying
Right.
these things, right? Once again,
Yes.
like always, like
People
if
who
not,
profit, yeah.
yes, if not, like even many of us right
Yeah.
now, we can say having different, opinions. Like, how is Jesus going to be the only way for me to get to,
Right.
God? Or, a lot of people have that, and they did here too. And obviously here they were still sus about Jesus. They were like, you know what? He's still demon possessed, and
Right.
he's
Yeah.
so because at the end of these verses that we're reading of the Good Shepherd, we have this conclusion once again. So and then that's where he drifted away and some people followed him.
Yeah.
And then this is he kept telling them again.
Yeah.
And then he makes this point where it's like he finally connects himself to the Father. And that's what he's been doing with these couple of
Yes.
verses.
Yeah.
So they know, the Jews know prophecy. They know Ezekiel. They know these things that were said,
Yeah, they
right?
know scripture. They have to know
So
scripture.
so it goes back, it connected so well to saying this is what God said once. Like, and he's making himself the visual part of it, like
It,
he's
he's
here.
he's like reiterating what
Yeah.
his father has once said to
Mhm.
them
Yeah.
specifically. It's like that's beautiful that
Yeah.
whatever Jesus teaches isn't new. It's
Yeah.
just reiterating what God had once said to
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and that's where he talks about, obviously these false shepherds,
Yeah.
obviously, because in the beginning God is saying how he's so angry with
Right.
these false shepherds just guiding their flock to something bad. And
Yeah.
obviously that's why at the end he says
I will
he will
feed them
feed them my
justice.
justice,
Yeah.
because they were doing these things.
Right.
And what were the Pharisees doing? They were doing the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and what are people now doing in our
It's the
churches,
same
pastors
thing.
and
Yeah.
everything? They're giving out false stuff, false information,
Gospels.
false
Yeah.
gospels. And it's like, no, like, I will feed you guys. Like, I will give you guys the right information, the right, words, my voice. Remember, like, it's kind of what we have to lean on and remember that, he is the only, source of getting to where we want to with our shepherd, obviously.
And I feel like that's why the 7 I am statements are still so important for us,
Mhm.
because in the midst of chaos, in the midst of, this modern era of, new ideas coming in, old ones coming out and then going, like it's a circle of life again.
Mhm.
We can see that these 7 I am statements, even just the first four that we have been studying, teach us once again that our eyes should be set
Mhm.
on him, and
Mhm.
that he satisfies every part of our body that our like flesh desperately like wants to like
Mhm.
grab something for.
Yeah.
I am the light of the world. I am, the gate. I am the good shepherd. All of these things
Mhm.
show us that Christ is everything for us, and there's nothing more that we should want
Yeah.
other than him. There's no other person in this world that is able to satisfy us
Yeah.
but
It's
Christ.
just, it reminds us of the daily dependency that we have for Christ, for God. And, you know, just know that he calls out for you. He wants you, he wants to bring you closer to him. And, you know, it's just beautiful to see and be reassured of, that he really just cares for you.
And it's also like, if you're new to this walk with Christ, let him be your shepherd.
Yeah.
Let him call you with his soft voice.
Mhm.
Let him show you that he knows you. He knows every
Mhm.
part of you. He knows what's the best, what's the worst. He knows the darkest of your heart. He knows the lightest of your heart. He knows everything about you. Yet, even with all those things that we can have as humans, all these defects,
Mhm.
he still chooses us to be his sheep.
Yeah.
He still wants us to be his sheep.
Mhm.
And I feel like, just to end on that note for this episode, is no matter who you are, no matter what you have done, the good shepherd is right there for you.
Yeah.
If you have ran away, he will leave the 99 to go for you. His love is immense, his grace is infinite. He will always be there for you because he is the good shepherd.
Yeah. It's a total sacrificial love, and he gave up his life. It's not just something to take lightly, he was treated the most horrible way for you, for us.
Voluntarily, wasn't forced. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
He gave himself up for us.
Yeah. Well, that was beautiful once again. I don't know, these episodes have been teaching me so much personally. And God, I think that's kind of what God has been reminding me, for these couple of even services at church and everything, about how He's with me, regardless of how far I might feel, how like dirty you might feel, how, sometimes your busyness doesn't let you, like, you know, you kind of leave Him to the side, but yet He still chooses you. And, it's just beautiful. He's been talking to me in those ways, and I know he has.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. We
Yes.
hope it encouraged you guys. It grows your faith. Obviously, it
100%.
helps you with this journey with Jesus, and we're just so glad that you guys tuned in. And in our journey verse for today is obviously going to be John 10:11, and says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for his sheep." So we'll leave it
Amen.
at that. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Hasta luego.
Bye.